This morning, I-25 southbound is shut down at Comanche after a serious crash. Albuquerque police say it all happened around 4 this morning. They say the crash is a result of a wrong-way driver involving two cars. No word yet how long I-25 will be closed. We will continue to bring you updates as they become available. From his hospital bed to a jail cell, an Albuquerque man critically injured during a shooting is now behind bars. News 13's Candace Hopkins explains the bizarre discovery that led to the man's arrest.
Police arrived at Wantabo in Central last week to find Stacy Johnson shot several times. He was rushed to UNM Hospital to be treated. Now, instead of a hospital gown, Johnson is wearing orange.
Mr. Johnson, you are charged in a criminal complaint with trafficking a controlled substance, possession of a controlled substance, and tampering with evidence.
Johnson appeared before a judge still wearing bandages on his face, neck, and hand after his doctor called the cops on him. A criminal complaint says when Johnson originally arrived at UNM, doctors only did an initial evaluation of his injuries. But when staff took a closer look 2 days later, they discovered cocaine in Johnson's groin area, allegedly packaged to be sold. Court officials say this isn't Johnson's first run-in with the law, specifically when it comes to drugs.
We did locate 8 felony arrests with 2 convictions, possession of a controlled substance and misdemeanor evading arrest in Texas, 2009.
But when it was the judge's turn to talk, Johnson kept interrupting.
You've been unemployed for 5 years. You have 8 felony arrests, 2 convictions. You're going to speak when I'm done, but yes, you may speak, but not speak. You're not going to speak at the same time as I'm speaking.
When he was allowed to speak, Johnson told the judge why he needed to be let out of jail.
I had an interview at a job at Albuquerque Cal on Monday.
Candace Hopkins, KRQE News 13.
Court records show Johnson has been arrested for aggravated battery with a deadly weapon and gun charges in the past. Now, the night of the shooting, APD says it interviewed Johnson's alleged shooter but didn't file charges at that time. Military officials say 2 people were hurt after an airplane training lesson took a wrong turn in southern New Mexico. The Las Cruces Fire Department says a student and an instructor were ejected from the plane just before the crash outside the international airport there yesterday. Both have been taken to the hospital with minor injuries. Military and FAA officials are now investigating the cause of the crash. Family members of people shot and killed by police officers aren't happy about a national police shooting contest held in Albuquerque. An organizer of the protest says the 5-day contest that started yesterday glorifies police shootings. Many of those protesters say holding the competition here is an insult to the APD shooting victims and their families. We saw similar demonstrations this time last year. The group met at Robinson Park in the city's downtown and marched to Embassy Suites where the competition is happening.
It's cool to see people out here. Really, this is the only way things are ever going to change if we get together and organize. We have the power. The people have the power. We are the masses.
The NRA says on its website that the National Police Shooting Championships are open to public and private law enforcement members and some military law enforcement members. The city has welcomed the opportunity to host an event like this in the past, saying they're grateful for the service law enforcement professionals provide. The saga surrounding the Kentucky County Clerk who has refused to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples appears to be far from settled. In a court filing Friday, the attorney for one of Kim Davis's employees said he believes she has again violated a federal court order. He says Davis is altering marriage license forms, removing her name and requiring them to be notarized. A U.S. district judge released Davis from jail on the condition that she not interfere with her employees as they issue marriage licenses. The director of Rand Paul's presidential campaign claims a top official for the Marco Rubio campaign assaulted one of Paul's aides at a bar last week. In a Facebook post, the aide John Yob says Rubio deputy campaign manager Rich Beeson hit him at a bar in Michigan, where a number of Republican candidates gathered over the weekend. Security video from Horns Gaslight Bar shows the campaign staffer punching Yob. Police are looking into it. However, it's still unclear if charges will be filed. A novelist known for writing 30 New York Times bestsellers has died. Jackie Collins passed away yesterday after losing her battle with breast cancer. She wrote several books over 4 decades, some of which became movies. According to People magazine, Collins was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer 6.5 years ago, but never went public with it. She is survived by her 3 daughters and 6 grandchildren. Collins was 77 years old. Well, clothing is not the only thing that was trapped inside a donation bin in a Home Depot parking lot. Firefighters responded to a report of a man stuck in a clothes and shoes donation bin in California. Officials arrived on scene to find the man desperately attempting to free himself. Now, it took about 20 minutes to rescue him. Officials say he was not injured, but they're not sure why he climbed into the bin in the first place. The Pope will be making his historical visit to the U.S. this week. This comes after he made a stop in Cuba this weekend. Pope Francis was greeted at Havana's airport by well-wishers. His plane and the tarmac displayed the Cuban and the Vatican flags together. Francis praised his predecessors for having opened the way to Cuba by their previous visits to the island.
Today, we renew those bonds of cooperation and friendship so that the Church can continue to support and encourage the Cuban people in its hopes and concerns.
Francis will visit the United States starting Tuesday, marking his first visit to the U.S. New this morning, police are on the hunt for an armed suspect after they say a Craigslist buy went terribly wrong. Officers say the victim met up with the suspect in northeast Albuquerque early this morning to buy a car he saw in a Craigslist ad. Now, during the transaction, police say the seller, who had a gun, took a large amount of the buyer's money, then fled in the vehicle he was selling. The seller then crashed the car into a home and fled on foot. The buyer ran after him. Now, during the chase, police say the suspect fired shots at the buyer. No one was hurt. Police say they're now actively searching for the suspect. This morning, the investigation continues into a stabbing that left one person injured in northeast Albuquerque. It all happened at an apartment complex where residents say they're worried about their safety. On Friday, APD found one man stabbed at Winrock Villas on Pennsylvania near I-40. That man is expected to survive. Several other people were questioned by officers at the scene, and 3 people were taken into custody. Police say a neighborly dispute started it all. Residents at the complex say they're on edge.
There are no words to describe how devastated I am, and I'm sure that if you would ask anybody here, they would be devastated too.
30-year-old Jerome Madrid has been charged with a misdemeanor battery charge. A man claiming to be Madrid's father tells us he rents from David Shaken. We told you about Shaken after neighbors say he wrote threatening messages to them from jail. He has since been released. Well, some good news this morning. The man who decided to investigate his own auto theft found his Jeep. Joshua Lawrence says thieves stole his Jeep from his home near UNM Thursday morning. He reported the theft to police, but he says they told him it would be tough to find. That's when he took matters into his own hands. Lawrence followed a long trail of radiator fluid leaking from his Jeep until he found it near Fairview Memorial Park. He says police did sweep the area but didn't find it, so he continued the investigation on his own.
I told the cop the same thing. I'll continue this investigation myself. I'll figure out who's taking these cars and where they're taking them.
Lawrence says officers did take fingerprints off the car, but police told him the analysis could take months. Police say Lawrence did the right thing, filing a report. However, they don't encourage you to take matters into your own hands when it comes to crime. Albuquerque and Bernalillo County firefighters are remembering those who've lost their lives doing what they do best, saving others. News 13's Madeline Schmidt said to us these pictures and video from Colorado Springs. That's where a memorial is being dedicated to the 310 firefighters who lost their lives over the past 2 years. The monument, showing a firefighter scaling a ladder, displays more than 7,000 names dating back to 1918. The man suspected in a series of shootings in Phoenix is claiming he's innocent, even talking in court against the advice of a judge. 21-year-old Leslie Merritt Jr. appeared before a judge yesterday. Authorities traced a gun to a local pawn shop that matched the make and caliber and casings found at crime scenes. And they say that gun was owned by Merritt.
All I have to say is that I'm the wrong guy. I tried telling the detectives that. My gun's been in the pawn shop for the last 2 months. I haven't even had access to a weapon.
The string of shootings terrified drivers on Arizona highways for 3 weeks. At least 11 vehicles were hit by bullets or other projectiles. Merritt is being held on a $1 million bond. The parents of a Native American boy say he was pulled out of class for wearing a mohawk haircut common among members of his family's tribe. The Utah family says the 7-year-old was allowed to return only after a member of the Seneca National Tribe wrote a letter to the school district. The father isn't sure why he had to jump through so many hoops to have his son's hairstyle approved. Mexican authorities have made 13 more arrests in connection with the prison break of a notorious drug lord. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman escaped a maximum security prison in Mexico 2 months ago. This surveillance video shows him climbing into a hole in a shower that led him to a mile-long tunnel. The new arrests include 3 high officials from the Mexican prison system. Guzman is wanted in Mexico and the U.S. A child in Texas is recovering after he was bit by a monkey. Cody the monkey visits with people at Miss Monkey's Emporium in League City. The mother of a 4-year-old boy says Cody bit her son, breaking the skin. However, the monkey's owner says the boy grabbed the animal.
And as I bent over, I didn't know the kid was behind me, but the photos I have show it. And the kid pulled on Cody, and Cody wanted to be released, so he clamped down on the kid.
The mom says she took her son to the doctor, who then reported the incident to animal control. Cody is now being quarantined at home for the next 21 days. His owner had his license temporarily suspended. Well, it's one of the most popular outdoor spots in Albuquerque, the Bosque. But for people in a wheelchair, getting there, let alone traveling the trails, is a major task. Now, a local group is hoping to change that.
Their trails well traveled. From cyclists to runners and walkers alike, Albuquerque's Bosque is an outdoor enthusiast's dream. It's also a place Ingrid Hendricks hopes one day she can experience without any trouble.
Well, if you don't know what the paths are like, it can be a little nerve-wracking.
Hendricks was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy when she was 19 years old. Before that,
I was actually on a bunch of teams when I was in high school. I was very active physically.
As time went on, Hendricks' condition got worse. She's been bound to a wheelchair for about 20 years.
I find as I'm getting more and more disabled, you know, my opportunities for doing things get less and less.
That's where Camilla Feebleman comes in.
The Sierra Club and the Bosque Action Team have recognized the need of getting more opportunities to get all sorts of people out into nature.
Representatives from those teams, along with a group of people with disabilities, took a stroll through a section of the Bosque. The goal, explore the accessibility of the trails, then give the city recommendations on how to improve them.
Always the biggest challenge is getting up and over the levee. Those angles are pretty hard. Sometimes there's overgrown vegetation.
The group also encountered a steep ramp and uneven gravel today, but Hendricks says it was all worth it.
Just be able to enjoy what other people enjoy is wonderful. I know, right?
The group says recommendations from this walk will include adding in a new ramp on the trail and evening out the loose gravel. They will take those ideas to the city and the state later this month.